Sonic the Hedgehog 2 8-bit for the Master System and Game Gear is not your typical sequel story because there's not a lot to say about the making of this game as compared to the 8-bit Sonic 1. It is not developed by the same people who did Sonic 1 8-bit. It's done by a company known as Aspect, who will be doing the future 8-bit 2D platformers in the Sonic franchise. And there is quite a few interesting things in this game to talk about, even if there is no behind-the-scene details, really. The most interesting thing of being is that this game technically came out before Sonic 2 on Genesis, only on the Master System in Europe and Japan, I believe. North America, they came out later, obviously. But yeah, actually, no, just Europe and South America came out October, a month before the Genesis version. But does it really matter? No. So technically, this is the first appearance of Tails, if you want to count it like that. Anyway, like I said, this game was released on the Master System and Game Gear. However, the Master System version was only released in Europe and South America. So the better, superior version, basically, you can only play in those regions unless you're using an emulator, like I am. Because all the re-releases of this game are the Game Gear version. And keep in mind, the Game Gear version is not as good as the Master System version, mostly due to the fact that the screen is smaller. And in Sonic, you need your screen to be big because of obstacles, especially in this game. There's tons of them. One thing you know about this game is that, unlike Sonic 1 8-bit, which is basically the same plot and structure as the Genesis version, the Sonic 2 8-bit is pretty much a completely different game. It doesn't share any of the same zones. It doesn't even share the same story as its 16-bit counterpart. So we talk about the story real quick before we talk about the game itself. So, apparently this game takes place after the last game, being Sonic 1 8-bit. And Sonic and Tails are already friends here, alright? They're just best friends already. Apparently, Tails leaves a note on Sonic's door, according to the manual. That, what is it about? It's so weird. So yeah, the animals in South Island to kidnap Dr. Eggman, and they're being held prisoner on Crystal Egg, which is a place that Eggman built, I guess. It's a crystal. And yeah. The only thing that can beat it is by collecting the 6 Chaos Emeralds. There is no 7 Chaos Emeralds. And feed off the 6 fearsome master robots in each zone. So yeah, not too interesting stuff. There is 2 different alternate endings for the story, but yeah, basically Tails is kidnapped by Eggman, and Sonic's got to save him and defeat all his 6 masters, which appear at the end of each level, and collect all 6 Chaos Emeralds to fight Eggman in the Crystal Egg Zone. Before we talk about the main game, let's talk about the new enemies introduced to the game. As unlike Sonic 8-bit, 1 8-bit, Sonic 2 8-bit adds new enemies, and not a whole lot, but we'll go over each and every one. Just get you guys a little rundown of all the new little badniks to fight. This guy is known as Button, or Button, whatever it is, Button without a T. It looks like a ball hog, but it's not. It's instead of throwing balls like a ball hog, it just jumps, basically. Kind of lame. We have the Borrowbot, and it looks like a Burrowbot, but it's a Borrowbot. What's the difference? There's a W. There's a Flying Chopper, who has a really hard image to find. There's nothing on this, no official artwork either, and it flies out of the water instead of I guess diving like it usually does. So there you go, it's Flying Chopper for you. There's Game, which name is just a reference to the Japanese word King, or whatever it is, which is what they call turtles, and it's basically a little guy that floats in the air, goes back and forth. Nothing too special here. Then we got a really weird thing. It's a Mecha Hoyoko, which, believe it or not, this weird enemy appears in a future Sonic 8-bit game. So, yeah, this guy looks like a phallic object is going to be returning, and basically just a little missile. We have a new Motora, which is just a Motobug. There's Terraban, which, if you couldn't guess, it's just a crab meat, but with an American color scheme. Or actually, more like a French. The last enemy is a Zarian, who's a little crawfish that shoots little bullets underwater. And that's it, other than bosses, but we'll talk about the bosses during the boss fight. Alright, now that's all out of the way, let's talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 2, 8-bit. And it's mostly the same from its, first counterpart. I think Sonic moves a little bit better in this game, but that doesn't really matter as much because the level design sure is annoying, making, I think, Sonic 1 a bit better because the levels in this game are pretty bad, to be honest. Though we have a very interesting first level. Instead of having a hill zone, we have underground zone, which is basically your minecart level. And it was not hard. It is a very unique first level for a Sonic game. It feels more like a later level in a game. But no, we start out here first. There's walls to break, minecarts to ride on that have very weird feeling mechanics and such. Well, it's not too hard. It is just a little taste of it, and there's is a good amount of mechanics that makes this zone kind of fun to play on. Pretty much every act of this zone has Sonic starting up above the surface and then going down into lava-filled mines. It's pretty neat. Of course, there's enemies in this zone, which we'll go over. We have the new Motora, Neutrons, and Terabans are the enemies of this game. Basically the same as the Sonic 1 counterparts. Like I said, this game has more to do with Sonic 1 than Sonic 2, even though it's called Sonic 2, because it was made with Sonic 2. They had no idea what Sonic 2 was even going to be. The minecarts are a very weird thing. You kind of wish you just were riding on them rather than using the minecart, especially since a lot of times they can put you in annoying advantages and stuff like that. I don't know if there's special stages in this game. That sounds really stupid for me to say that, but yeah, I really don't know if there's special stages. Fuck me. Starting off every act in Underground Zone, Sonic will stay above the surface, and then as he moves along, he'll go downhill in the minecarts, the lava pits, and even spike traps coming up above him. There's, of course, enemies in this level, of course. They are the typical Green Hill Zone enemies, actually, being the new Motora, which is the Motobug, the Neutron, and the Teraban, which, as we already established, is basically just a crab meat. Yeah, like I said, this level is actually not bad. The biggest problem with it being that the minecarts are really not that fun. In fact, a lot of times they can put you in places that aren't the greatest to be in. So keep in mind that you're better off just running down them, because why wouldn't you want to, anyway? But yes, keep in mind there is fireballs and stuff like that, and the rings are just as annoying as the first Sonic 8-bit game, where you still lose a bunch of them, even if you get hit whenever you get hit, no matter how much you have. The other thing is a little better from my memory, because at least you get a couple more chances to get them, but it's still super hard to get. And of course, there's one last thing to mention about this, is the flagpoles. It's not the most interesting thing in the world, but each one gives you a little different little bonus. When it comes to the special bonuses for the check mark for the ending little flagpole here, is that it's actually very unclear. In fact, if you didn't know any better, like I did, you wouldn't even see other ones. So basically, you will always get Eggman. Unless you have like 2 lives less than when you first enter the act, which is a really weird requirement, you'll get a Sonic, which gives you a 1-up. If you have a multiple of 10 is your in-ring count, you get 10 rings, I guess. Doesn't really matter at all. And if you somehow hold 77 rings in the same number of lives that you first enter the act with, you get Tails, which is a continue. Like, that's a really weird requirement. Like, I bet if I played this game multiple times, I would never hit that, because it's so specific. Before we talk about the boss, there is Chaos Emeralds in this game, but like I said, there's only 6. However, if you need to collect all 6 if you want to get to the last stage of the game and actually get the good ending. Which you kind of want to, because the bad ending really is a bad ending in this game. Plus, you're missing on an extra level. Like I said, there is no 7 Chaos Emeralds, so there is no Super Sonic. There's also no special stages in this game, which is very odd. It's the only Sonic games I know that's like this that doesn't have a special stage. Like Sonic 1 8-bit, there are 3 acts. In the third act, you get no rings, and it's a boss fight. For Sonic 2's Underground Zone has one of the weirdest moments in Sonic history. Sonic goes for this loop and falls to his death. Then Eggman saves him? Huh? What? Eggman let him go! Eggman could have let Sonic die there, but he decides that, nope, I'm going to pick him up and save him. Yes, this always happens no matter what you do, because he wants you to fight the boss here, and this boss is annoying. Quite annoying. This guy is known as the Pit Master. It's just a weird little, I don't even know what it is. Like what do you call those things? Don't know. Don't care. Basically, you can't hit it. Basically, Eggman, I guess, is shooting balls at you from the other side, and you basically got to make sure that it lands in the mouth of this guy. It's not that hard, but like keep in mind you have 0 rings. That wouldn't matter because the rings collecting system isn't as good as the other Sonic games. But just keep in mind that those balls can be a little annoying to dodge, and just don't get any blue balls. And then at the end, Eggman will charge at you and hit his own Pitmaster. Not too hard, but the rest of these bosses don't get any easier. Also, there's this weird robot that has Eggman's face on it and releases animals from it. It's very odd looking. Like, who came up with that design? Next zone is my least favorite zone of all time, Sky High Zone. First, Sky High Zone seems pretty normal. Like, this should have been the first level of the game, right? This has got Green Hill Zone aesthetics, first level of the Sonic game. It's not exactly Green Hill, but it looks more like Emerald Hill Zone. You got spike traps that you can't see and losing 1 ring. And yeah, you could easily die here because you can't see the spikes, even though in the Master System version. Anyway, most of these levels are just climbing up a mountain, which is pretty interesting. Alright. There's not that many enemies in here compared to the spike traps that are here, which include the Game and the Neutron, so only 2 enemies. But this level has a mechanic known as the hang gliders, and these things are so unintuitive, unless you have a manual, which I don't, because most of these cartridge games don't have manuals, and I didn't think about reading it either. You don't know how to use it. Basically, I don't even know how to describe it. You get to hold right all the way, then hold left sometimes. You would think it works like the Mario world maybe, but it took me like so many tries to get it right that it was actually insane. It is, but you have to learn it. But it only is in this one level, so I don't understand why they force you to use it here. They really, especially since it's not that important at all the rest of the game. If it was gonna be a bigger mechanic, maybe, but the fact that like they force you to have to learn this terrible lead controlled hang glider, it just sucks. It's just terrible. After enough trial and error, you should get the hang of it. I can't even describe how it feels, but once you get it right, you'll get it right. And you'll realize that once you do it, that this level is actually incredibly short. In fact, most of the levels of this game are incredibly short. Instead of like actually having log levels or just well-designed levels, they decided to make the levels just hard as possible so you can't get past them, which is not good level design if you know anything about level design. Act 2 is a little bit of a different aesthetic because we got rain here. And we get our hang glider, but fortunately for us, we don't have to use it throughout the whole level. And like I said, they are only in this level, so what was the whole point of them? The game developers thought this hang glider thing was so great that you put it on the cover of the game. But spoiler alert, it sucks. Anyway, Sky Zone Act 2 is pretty neat, though, because of how different it is, and bouncing on clouds, and running on the clouds, and it's kind of fun, except for any random spike traps. That happens quite a lot in this game. So the hang glider is required? Well, it's required for this part here. And since I accidentally press the jump button, I'm basically dead here. Yeah, they have a death trap that forces you to do the very precise hang gliding. That's so insane. I had to use save states in order to get past this. Like, I have no idea, like, what were they thinking here. It's so awful. So you gotta dive down, because you go straight ahead, you'll crash to the wall. But at the same time, if you do that, you lose a lot of momentum, and once that happens, you basically are stuck here until you just have to make a leap of faith and just run past it. That's not good level design. What are you, Aspect, or whoever it was who developed this game? You guys did a terrible job here. Act 3 shows Sonic, and I guess Jack of the Beanstalk, so all these beanstalks coming. And of course, if you know, Act 3 is the boss, so we got the boss here. And the boss's name is Hyoko Master. And what is a Hyoko? Well, it shoots out little birds at you. It's just a giant bird guy. After beating all those little kids up, you have to jump on him. Unfortunately, his weird pattern makes it so that it's kind of easy to get hit when you don't mean to, thanks off the bouncing of the Sonic 2 8-bit engine, basically. Plus, he's very erratic. But other than that, it's not too hard. But because they have to do stuff like that you can die easy. After that nightmare, we enter Aqua Lake Zone, which is, well, an Aqua Lake Zone. Unfortunately, it's a water level, but look at this scenery. That's pretty neat. Look at all those little water tubes. That's cool, Leo. Did I say that? Anyway, this level's pretty cool because Sonic can bounce in the water. It's got a unique water effect, and it's not too bad compared to Labyrinth Zone, at least. Yeah, you wouldn't expect a water level in Sonic 2 8-bit to be actually good, but it is. The fact that you can just skip over the water there is pretty great. There's actually a loop which wasn't even in the first 8-bit game, as well as a bunch of little fun obstacles to take off. Act 2, of course, is completely different. Actually, it forces you to go underwater, but just this first act alone is a nice breath of fresh air after the horridness of Sky High Zone. And there's only a couple enemies in this level, and mostly appear in the second act, that being the Terraban and the Zarian. Look at that, you found one up here. Isn't that nice? Act 2 is pretty different, where you're forced to be in a bubble, but when you're in this bubble, you float, so at least that's kind of fun. And yeah, stuff like that can happen. It's a pretty weird Act 2, I'll tell you that. But at least you don't have to worry about drowning as much because most of the time you'll be in those bubbles. And when you're in the bubble, you don't have to worry about drowning. So that's amazing. It's quite lovely. Why couldn't all Sonic water levels be like this? Well, maybe not as confusing as whatever's going on here. Though it still is really slow of a level. Act 2 takes way longer than Act 1, even if it isn't that long, just because of weird things that take you to areas that don't make any sense, as well as very slow bubble puzzles. But other than that, it's definitely a better water level than even Labyrinth Zone on the Genesis. Our Act 3 boss is known as Balance Master. It's a otter that you gotta pop his nose. And that's pretty much it. He's a really easy boss fight. He just kind of sits there, and then he blows up his nose and he pop it. If you let it go too long, he'll shoot it at you, but that doesn't happen very often because it's pretty easy. Also, this otter, for some reason, looks like Eggman. I have no idea why. If you jump him about his nose, he'll just bounce you around. It's actually kind of fun, and it's pretty easy, as you couldn't tell by the explanation here. So let's go on to the next zone. The next zone is Green Hills Zone. Green Hills? You mean regular Green Hill? No, this is just called Green Hills Zone. It basically is one of the easiest levels in the game, and it feels like, why is this in the middle of the game? You know? Like, what is going on here? This level layout makes no sense. Especially since, like I said, this is like a first level part of the game. In fact, the whole layout here seems very similar to the Genesis Green Hill Zone. I have no idea what they were thinking here. But either way, this level's super easy. There's just 3 enemies, the new Motora, Neutron, and Terraban. They're pretty easy, and you'll basically fly through this level because there's not many obstacles in your way. And the music is really good in this level. They actually reuse this to the main theme for Sonic CD in the background. I would play it, but I don't want to get copyright stricken, so there you go. Yeah, even video game music you can get copyrighted for. I know. I had to deal with it in the first Sonic video I did. Had to take out some music, so that sucks. But other than that, Green Hill Zone is pretty basic, but it's a little too basic. It's actually really forgettable for how easy and bland it is. Like I said, I don't like the annoying BS stuff, but here it just feels like there's like no point here. It's like really nothing gets in your way other than these bricks here, because everything else is just smooth sailing. Act 3 is the most noteworthy act because it has the boss and also this weird spring mechanic where you have to bounce on the right springs in order to get to the top, which is, very interesting. Eventually, you'll get to the boss, which is the Hole Master, and he is a pig who likes to roll up in a ball, and you gotta avoid him, but then hit him. He's like, okay, I don't know what Super Wrestler has anything to do with rolling in a ball, but whatever. Super Wrestler pig, I don't really get it. So yeah, it's pretty basic. Not much to say here. Next zone. The next zone is Gimmick Mt Zone. Other than these ball puzzles, not much else to say about it. It's just trying to be a scrap brain zone with all the mechanics, but it's not that hard. It's one of those zones there's not much to say about it, or the fact that I was trying to use the momentum to get myself up like I always try to do. And that's the most interesting thing about this zone. If you don't do this, the zone goes by pretty quick, especially for a zone that feels like a final zone. It's not. We have 2 more zones after this to deal with. But yeah, for some reason, this zone exists, and yeah. It has 3 enemies, Bomb, Burrowbot, and Muton, and they aren't difficult to deal with. There's actually very little enemies in the game in general, so you won't be doing a lot of them. But you basically deal with the weird generic stuff in these levels, spikes, treadmills, and wheels, and yeah, that's about it, and little pipes and stuff like that. So yeah, nothing too exciting to say this level, so let's go on to the boss. Well, this act would be pretty easy, except for the Act 3, which has this really annoying puzzle with these weird bendy straw moving platforms where you just have to watch out for spikes and you have to wait and then jump on at the right time, and if you try to go away from it, you'll realize you'll die because you have no rings and you thought, oh wait, I guess I need that platform, now you have to wait for it. Kind of annoying. And after taking an eternity to get past this little bendy straw movement, like why does it look like a bendy straw is the real question, we finally are able to get to our boss. It took us long enough, and now we're going to fight this person. Our boss fight is known as Charge Master. It's like a charging pig or something that charges and the rocks fall. You gotta hit it when it gets after it gets charged against the wall. Be careful because it's pretty easy to get hit by it. It doesn't look that hard, but because of the annoyingness of the hitboxes, the zero rings, it makes it a boss fight that wouldn't be too difficult into a nightmare. Scrambled Egg Zone is one of the most infamous zones in any Sonic game, and your egg will definitely be scrambled after playing this zone. So you're like in a forest at the night, and basically what you're doing is dealing with a bunch of tubes that go there, here, there, and everywhere, and the tubes make you want to die, and they are terrible, and oh my god, I hate the tubes so much. Like here, basically nothing. You get a spray that says you're trapped, so you have to go for this stupid tube, and you have to hold right or left up, and it's kind of hard. There's a bunch of different paths you got to take. You got to figure out. It takes like hours to figure out the paths sometimes. Not hours, but like over like 20 minutes to figure out where each path goes. Like, does this one take me where I want to go? Oh, I guess not. It's just so monotonous. It's just not good level design. It's not fun. And like I said, everywhere you go, you'll find stuff. You won't find anything interesting. Maybe you'll find like one extra life, but you won't find anything good. Maybe even an extra Chaos Emerald. And this zone will go on for eternity. By the end of this, I was like so done with this game, and I didn't even care that I didn't even collect any Chaos Emeralds. So I will be using other people's footage. I'll make sure to link them in the description below for the last zone, because I unfortunately could not put myself to get all the Chaos Emeralds, because I just do not care for this game very much at all. After dealing with enough pipe bullshit to last a lifetime, we finally fight our boss, Mecha Sonic. And yes, this is one of our first robotic doppelgangers. And yes, he's also called Mecha Sonic, though we'll be calling him Silver Sonic, since that seems to be his official name nowadays. but it lists him as Mecha Sonic. He's one of the most derpiest looking Metal Sonics ever. And basically, all you gotta do is just hit him, and he'll bounce at you, and you hit him back. He's actually a lot easier than his Genesis counterpart. That's the only thing that this and the Genesis games share, is that they both have a robotic Sonic. I guess all the Sonic 2s, it's like we had to have a robotic version of Sonic here, and each of them took it at different degrees. This is easily the worst one. However, this guy does return in comics as well as Sonic Media. And this is the final boss for me, because I did not collect all 6 Chaos Emeralds. However, we're going to pretend that I did get all the 6 Chaos Emeralds to showcase what the next zone looks like. If you collect all 6 Chaos Emeralds, you get the Scrambled Egg Zone, which is a zone of Eggman's Final Fortress, and it is so bright that it hurts my eyes. Like, geez Louise, what is going on here? There are only one enemies, being the Flying Chopper. It's kind of weird that it exists here. Basically, it's pretty basic level. Think platforms are falling from the sky, there's your usual spikes, and basically, just looking at this level makes my eyes hurt. Well, I guess not bad level design, just the really bright pixels. I don't know why it just hurts my eyes. And yeah, those are the Flying Choppers. I have no idea why they decided to put fish flying from the sky for the final level, but who the hell knows? Maybe Sonic died and went to heaven. Crystal Egg Zone Act 3 looks very different because we're finally in Eggman's base, and we get a pretty easy boss fight. All we gotta do is go for more tubes and make sure we get to the other side and hit Eggman as he shoots stuff at us from the other side, which really isn't that interesting of a boss fight. You're just waiting for him to shoot electricity and then go back out and hit him. It's a really uninteresting boss fight when it comes down to it, but this is what you get if you want all 6 Chaos Emeralds. Getting past Crystal Egg Zone is pretty basic. There's nothing really that dangerous in there. The boss fight, even though you have 0 rings, it looks piss poor easy, so you shouldn't have any trouble beating Eggman. After a couple hits, Eggman should get defeated. He'll explode. He doesn't even run away. He just dies here. So yeah, I guess the game's not canon. Oh, actually, there he is. He's running away. He gets on his teleporter and teleports his fat self away. And Sonic just stares at him and doesn't really care. Eggman gets away, but luckily for him, his little buddy gets zapped back to him, and Sonic saved Tails, and that makes a happy ending. One thing about this game is I have no idea whether it's story canon and where it takes place. I'm going to assume that it might not be canon just because of how weird it is in the... It might be, it may not be, but just some elements makes me think that it's not, but I have no idea. Either way, it's one of those things where people say, oh, it takes place before Sonic 2 Genesis. It does not, because the manual makes it seem like Sonic already knows Tails. However, in Sonic 2, the game, that's where he first meets Tails, so it doesn't correlate very well. So whether you count this or not, doesn't matter. There's not much story to it anyway. But yeah, that's Sonic 2, and you run off with Tails, and that is the good ending. At the end of it all, Sonic and Tails look up into the sky and see their nice reflections of themselves. Isn't that beautiful? Like me, and you didn't get all 6 Chaos Emeralds, you'll get this ending after you beat the Scrambled Egg Zone, and Sonic will be running by himself. So, your question is, what happened to Tails? Well, after Sonic's done running, he looks up into the sky, and instead of seeing a reflection of himself, or him and Tails, this time he only sees Tails. And this ending heavily implies that Tails died. Technically one of the darkest Sonic endings ever. End. Lovely. If you want Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on Game Gear or Master System, well, here you go. The North American release is pretty cheap. It's the easiest game to find on the Game Gear. So if you have a Game Gear, you most likely have Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Like I said, it's a $5 loose game. Even for a complete game, $20 is pretty cheap. Though for the Master System, it's also incredibly cheap. At least the PAL version of the game, going for around the same price. Well, that's because Europe liked the Master System or America. So yeah, this game is actually pretty cheap if you want it on both consoles. Alongside every other Sonic Game Gear game, which is featured in Sonic Adventure DX, you have to unlock it though. It's pretty easy to unlock. It's 120 emblems, though it shouldn't really matter at all because there's other ways to play it. But if you like Sonic Adventure DX, you can easily unlock all these mini games. For me personally, I recommend playing Sonic 2 8-bit on emulator because you don't want to use save states because it's so annoying. Sonic 2 8-bit was also released on the Sonic Gems collection, which is not the cheapest game it looks like, even though I own it. If you're a European viewer, you can actually own the Gems collection on the PlayStation 2 as well as Japanese viewers. The Gems collection came out on PS2 in those regions, but not in America, just GameCube only. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, Sonic 2 is on this collection. Like every Sonic game that was on the Virtual Console, On the Wii, you buy the Master System version, which is pretty nice, and 3DS, you have the Game Gear version. Unfortunately, both of them are defunct now, but hey, if you had them on these consoles, you can still play them. Let's just say that. You might find them, maybe. Who knows? No, it doesn't matter. And of course, Sonic Origins Plus is once again mentioned. This game has all the Game Gear games, so there you go. That's an easy way to play Sonic 2 Game Gear, which is a pretty, even though there's a lot of consoles it's on, it still is a pretty easy game to get. To be good tough for this video, I'm not a big fan of Sonic 2 8-bit. I think it's a downgrade between the Sonic 1 8-bit, which even though that one has its problems, it feels like it's a more well thought out game. They put a lot of effort to see if they can make it translate the Genesis game onto their Game Gear / Master System, but in a unique way. It felt it had a little more heart into it. Sonic 2 8-bit just feels very weird all the way around. It feels weirdly archaic. Sometimes it emulates Sonic elements, sometimes it'll do a weird gimmick thing. Each level is inconsistent, and the level challenge is so drastic in the game, it's literally insane. The game is very unfair a lot of parts. Even if it feels like they fixed some physical elements from Sonic 1 8-bit, it feels like a giant downgrade. There is no multiplayer. Not that it really matters, but there's no playable tails in the game, but the fact that it appears in every title card. And the fact that you have to find all 6 cancer emeralds, even though, like I said, they're not obvious, so you gotta search around some of these really annoying levels to find them just to get the final level and the good ending. Or if the game basically says, you killed Tails, you bastard. Overall, Sonic 2 8-bit is a pretty easy game to find, so if you want to check it out, you can go check it out. It's not worth revisiting, but if you're interested, go ahead. I am not going to be revisiting this game anytime soon, though.